So once we've established that we have some basic level of stamina with that stability work, it can just sort of kind of become part of our warm up, right? So you might just get out the Bosu and do 20 squats on a Bosu, call it a day, as far as like just trying to wake up your legs and whatnot, remind them how to stabilize. That way, when you go to the rack, you can actually be more stable in that position. You can use the Bosu again for like push-ups or things like that. You can do your renegade rows. That's a good stability workout, especially for your core. A lot of really, really great things that can do that. And that's going to help warm you up to just do some of those things and remind your body what it's supposed to be doing, and it's supposed to be stabilizing and wakes up your nervous system and stuff like that. Then we're going to be looking at kind of doing more stabilization endurance and just building some basic endurance in those muscles, because what happens is that when we start lifting heavier weights, especially, I guess I'm doing this motion, so I guess I'm doing a bench press, but when I'm going into heavier weights, one of the things that's going to happen is that, first of all, we need to kind of know the path of motion that a dumbbell or a barbell is supposed to be following in, right? And so one of the common things that I have seen, besides, people doing this kind of thing, which please don't do that, your elbows should be down here when you're doing a bench press. There are contextual reasons why, your path, like if you're doing a decline press or an incline press, the path that your forearms take might be a little bit different, but your forearms should always be pretty much plumb with gravity, right? So if I'm laying back on my back and I'm just on a flat bench, then this should be perpendicular to the floor, right? Parallel to the pull of gravity, and it should stay that way. So sometimes I see people push like this so that you get some of this external rotation. Of course, when we do that, we are putting ourselves into a less stable position. I'm talking again about a flat bench press. I'm not talking about an incline press here. But in this flat bench position, gravity could be pulling straight down. It might force this external rotation. That's a relatively common thing I see. I don't see internal rotation too much, which is kind of ironic because the pectorials will actually cause some internal rotation. But we need to have those external rotators fired up, ready to work, and kind of holding us in this plane of motion. And I guess this is as good a time as any to kind of go over, how to kind of wake those up. One of the drills that I have people do is called an ATY drill. And what that's going to be is that I'm going to be here on the ground. So I'm going to be belly down on the ground, and then I'm lifting thumbs up, right? And then I come up to a T position, and then I come up here and I go pinkies up, right? As I'm pulling off the ground, I try to keep my thighs off the ground just a little bit and keep weight off my chest. So all my weight is here on my hips and my belly. And I might do that before a set. I might also grab dumbbells. If I want to work external rotation and I'm using dumbbells, I will get into this deadlift position or this lunge position. I call it a deadlift position because you're hinging here. So I'm trying to get that hinge to happen at the hips. But then I'll get here, I'll bend over, I'll get into this high row position, and then I'll do external rotations here. You can do this with plates, you can do it with kettlebells, you can do it with whatever, that doesn't matter. What matters is that I'm going through this range of motion, right, with gravity pulling down. You'll see a lot of people, they might do it standing. There is benefit to this. The difference is that gravity's pulling straight down here. So I get up to here, and now gravity's pulling still straight down, but then I'm finishing the rep and I'm not getting that end range of motion. So by hinging forward, I'm getting the end range of motion. Standing with dumbbells like this and doing this does jack all for you, because I am doing an isometric bicep curl here. I'm holding at the 90-degree bend, so gravity's pulling down. My external rotators are doing nothing here, right? I don't even, you might as well just be leaving the dumbbell at home. You're not going to get anything out of that. If you want to get something out of that with dumbbells, again, getting down in this position, right, as parallel to the ground as you can, with as neutral of back as you can, getting that external rotation, that's a good way to kind of wake those up. You can get into this W position if you want to, but again, we're trying to be, kind of preventing this internal rotation here as well, and we're just getting those shoulder stabilizers more engaged in the activity. So when we are, and I went off the beaten path there, and I completely apologize. No, I'm not editing out. So when I'm doing a bench press and it's early in my program, I'm probably going to be shooting for about 16 to 20 reps. And that's to near failure, right? For pretty much every set. You don't have to go to failure on every set. Some research has suggested that if you're doing 3 or 4 sets, then only going to failure in your last set will be beneficial and will help prevent overtraining. So I am using a light enough weight so that I am pumping out 16 to 20 reps at that moderate to light weight, getting to the point where I'm reaching a reasonable level of fatigue where I'm not losing neuromuscular control. The other thing that happens often with the chest press is people will get up here and oftentimes maybe they aren't engaging their triceps enough, so they're not straightening out their arms, especially with dumbbells, and so they'll be in this position and now the triceps become overloaded because if you think about it, I'm moving here and gravity's pulling this way, right? If I'm not straightening out properly and keeping my forearm plumb with gravity, then I might lose control and the dumbbell can come in here. And I've had to save a couple clients and actually catch that dumbbell when they, push like this and lose control and it starts to come down. Fortunately, it's never landed on a client, so fingers crossed on that one. But so the point is that when we get into the second phase of exercising, that we want to be working on trying to reach that higher end range of stabilization endurance, right? I want to be able to safely go through the range of motion. I'm training my muscle memory to know what a correct rep feels like over a period of time until my body knows what it's doing. And probably after about 6 weeks or so of doing this, you'll be ready to start going into your 12 rep max ranges. You can go down then later after about 6 weeks to your 10 rep range, then down to your 8, and then finally down to your 6 if you're really, really serious about hypertrophy, which is going to be one of the next phases here. The next phase, of course, after stabilization and endurance and strength endurance is getting into just building more strength before we start really focusing on hypertrophy. So that's going to be like your 16 to 20 or 12 to 16 rep range. Or even if you want to go a little bit tougher, you can go 10 to 12, 10 to 14 reps. And that would be, a reasonable rep range to be kind of aiming for to start actually building some muscle and some muscle size, but really, really focusing more on that endurance. And, I would even argue that for wrestlers specifically, there might be a good argument for actually spending a lot more time, especially as you start developing more size, more strength, in going back to these higher rep ranges, because wrestling is all about endurance, right? And I guess that's going to be the theme of the next video. So let's go ahead and cut it right there and we'll hit it on the next video.